Well, when David Cameron gave evidence to the Leveson inquiry, he said the test would not be whether the politicians or press felt happy, but whether there was protection for the victims, the people who, he said, had been caught up and absolutely thrown to the wolves. The broadcaster Anne Diamond has talked to PM before about the intrusion that she felt into her private life following the death of her baby son, Sebastian. She gave evidence to the Leveson inquiry and joins us now. And Diamond, before we talk, just listen to this. This is how David Cameron said he'd answer victims like yourself as he justified his arguments today about not needing to have a new press law.
The greatest thing we can do for victims is to get up and running a regulatory body that we can be proud of. And I think that's more important than trying to seek perfection in every way. I think this is workable, it's good, it's tough, it's much stronger than anything we've had in the past, and it would happen. And that is the argument that I will make to victims and their representatives.
Do you understand his insistence?
I don't know. I feel desperately upset and hurt and disillusioned, and I think I've spoken to several other of the so-called victims today, and we all feel the same. In fact, we could all burst into tears together because it wasn't easy going through the Leveson inquiry. Even giving evidence before the inquiry meant that we had to relive some of the worst things that had happened to us. It was very scary. We got this sense of absolute foreboding that sticking our head above the parapet would only invite further press intrusion and criticism and mockery, and I got that from the former editor of The Sun, Kelvin Mackenzie, who, when he gave evidence, chose to tear me to bits. And I'm only glad that Lord Leveson stopped him in his tracks and pointed out that he wasn't exactly a reliable witness. But that's what I mean. We've been through the mill already. We were promised by David Cameron that unless Lord Leveson's recommendations were balmy, they would be implemented. And what are we seeing now? It's being brought right down to the level of being a party political squabble. And I don't want to get into this, and none of us should have to.
Are you saying David Cameron hasn't passed his own test?
Well, yes, but you see, here I am being put in the position of having to criticise the Prime Minister, and I don't feel comfortable doing that, and nor do the other victims. We don't want to be anti-Cameron or pro-Miliband on this. This wasn't meant to be a party political issue. This was charged to Lord Leveson, who took an objective, informed assessment of the situation, came up with his recommendations, which he stressed did not threaten the freedom of the press, did not amount to statutory regulation. We were promised they would be implemented, and they haven't been.
Given that David Cameron has said quite adamantly that he does not think a legislative framework, as Lord Leveson suggested, was the right way forward, he says his proposed system would still offer upfront apologies, £1 million fines for papers, a standards code, an arbitration code. Is that something that you could ever accept in place of a law?
No, you see, and I'm very worried about the phraseology that we're even hearing coming from the Prime Minister's lips. It's as though he's beginning to talk a bit like a press baron. He's talking about threatening the freedom of the press. He's talking about statutory legislative Leveson, and that's not what Leveson's recommendations were. They were a statutory underpinning of a self-regulatory body, something that just had a little more teeth than what we've had in the past, which clearly hasn't worked. All of the millions we spent on the Leveson inquiry, we totally wasted them.
So come Monday, do you think that you may have any more answers? Do you hope that the politicians will find some sort of compromise?
It shouldn't come down to them, should it? I feel so bitter that it's come down to this. But I don't know. I think possibly the vote will not go David Cameron's way, but who knows what shenanigans is going to go on politically over the weekend. I feel terribly disillusioned.
Anne Diamond, thanks very much for talking to us.